It was a crisp autumn evening on September 14th, 1985, at 10:27 p.m., when the alarm first pierced the quiet hum of Riverside International Airport. The facility, a bustling hub in the Midwest serving cargo flights for major banks and corporations, was no stranger to late-night operations. But this night, something was terribly wrong. Security guards rushed to the secure vault in Terminal C, where armored trucks unloaded cash shipments destined for regional banks. The heavy steel door stood ajar, its lock untouched, and inside, rows of pallets that should have held neatly stacked bundles of currency were empty. $2.9 million, gone without a trace of forced entry. John Miller, a 42-year-old baggage handler with 15 years on the job, had clocked in that morning like any other. Colleagues described him as reliable, the kind of guy who fixed jam conveyor belts without complaint and shared coffee during breaks. But beneath his steady demeanor lurked financial desperation, a mounting pile of medical bills from his wife's ongoing treatment for a chronic illness, and whispers of gambling debts that had spiraled out of control. Riverside wasn't a glamorous city, a mid-sized industrial town flanked by cornfields and fading factories. But for John, it was home, and the airport job was his lifeline. Archive. Photograph from employee records, dated 1984. John Miller stands in uniform, arms crossed, a faint smile under his mustache. The image shows faint creases on his shirt, as if he'd ironed it hastily. The heist unfolded with chilling precision. At 9:45 p.m., surveillance tapes, grainy black and white footage from bulky CCTV cameras of the era, captured John wheeling a maintenance cart toward the vault area. He paused, glancing at his watch, the fluorescent lights casting long shadows on the concrete floor. Moments later, a second figure emerged from the employee locker room. Alex Thompson, a 35-year-old freelance truck driver often contracted for airport deliveries. Alex was an outsider, known for his quick wit and a tattoo of a faded eagle on his forearm, a remnant from his brief stint in the military. The two men exchanged no words on camera. Instead, they moved in sync like dancers in a rehearsed routine. "Hand me the override key," John muttered under his breath, his voice barely audible over the distant roar of jet engines. Alex nodded, slipping a small metal tool from his pocket, a duplicate fabricated from blueprints John had accessed weeks earlier. The vault's electronic lock, a state-of-the-art model for 1985 with magnetic strips and punch codes, disengaged with a soft click. Inside, the air smelled of fresh ink and crisp paper, the bundles of $100 bills stacked like bricks in a fortress. They worked fast. Alex loaded the cash into reinforced duffel bags hidden in the cart, his hands steady despite the adrenaline. "This is it, John. No turning back," he whispered, sweat beading on his brow. John hesitated for a split second, his mind flashing to his wife, Sarah, waiting at home in their modest bungalow on Elm Street. But the weight of those debts pressed harder. In under 15 minutes, they wheeled the cart out through a service exit, blending into the night fog rolling in from the nearby river. The first responders arrived by 10:35 p.m. Local police, led by Detective Robert Hayes, a grizzled veteran in his late 50s with a perpetual squint from years of poring over case files, surveyed the scene. Hayes had seen his share of petty thefts at the airport, lost luggage, pilfered electronics, but this was different. No signs of struggle, no broken locks, he noted in his pad, the scratch of his pen echoing in the empty vault. The air still carried a faint metallic tang from the recently handled cash. Transcript. Excerpt from initial police radio dispatch. 10:28 p.m., September 14th, 1985. Dispatcher. All units, code 10 to 90 at Riverside Airport, Terminal C. Possible grand theft, secure vault compromised. Officer on scene. Copy that. No suspects in sight. Vault empty. Repeat, empty. The audio crackles with static, underscoring the urgency. News spread like wildfire through Riverside. By morning, local headlines screamed, "Airport fortune vanishes overnight." The community, already reeling from factory layoffs, buzzed with speculation. At the corner diner on Main Street, patrons huddled over coffee, the scent of burnt toast mingling with hush theories. Had to be an inside job, one mechanic grumbled. Who else knows the codes? Sarah Miller, John's wife, faced a barrage of reporters on her doorstep, her frail frame wrapped in a worn cardigan. John would never. He's a good man, she insisted, her voice trembling, eyes darting to the empty driveway where his old Ford pickup usually sat. The official investigation kicked into gear swiftly. Detective Hayes, methodical and weary from a string of unsolved burglaries, partnered with a younger officer, Detective Lisa Grant, fresh from the academy at 28. Grant brought enthusiasm and a knack for new forensics, fingerprint dusting with finer powders and early computer databases for cross-referencing alibis. They interviewed staff, including John, who appeared shaken but cooperative. I was on break in the lounge, he claimed, his hands fidgeting with a styrofoam cup. Heard the alarm and ran over. Alex Thompson, questioned separately, echoed a similar story. Just finished a delivery run. Didn't see nothing unusual. But Hayes noticed inconsistencies. Alex's truck log showed an unscheduled stop near the service exit at 9:50 p.m. Still, without concrete evidence, the case stalled. Airport security footage, limited to key areas, showed no clear faces during the theft window. The FBI was looped in briefly, given the interstate nature of the cash shipments, but they deferred to local jurisdiction after preliminary checks. Public reaction intensified. Protests erupted outside the airport administration building, with signs reading "Secure our jobs, catch the thieves." The heist exposed vulnerabilities in the system: outdated locks, underpaid guards, and lax background checks for contractors. Riverside's mayor held a press conference, promising swift justice, but whispers of corruption surfaced. Was the airport's manager, Edward Klein, involved? Klein, a portly executive with ties to local banks, dismissed the rumors, but his evasive answers fueled online forums, though in 1985 that meant typed newsletters and barroom debates. Imagine being one of those guards that night, the cold draft from the open vault door chilling your spine as you realize millions have slipped away under your watch. It wasn't just money stolen. It was trust in a town where everyone knew someone at the airport. A pivotal turn came during a routine search of employee lockers 2 days later. In John's compartment, tucked behind a spare uniform, investigators found a crumpled receipt from a hardware store dated September 10th for wire cutters and a key duplication kit. "Explain this," Hayes pressed during a follow-up interview, sliding the paper across the table. John paled, the room heavy with the smell of stale cigarettes. "It's for home repairs," he stammered. But the receipt's timestamp matched Alex's visit to the same store, captured on a grainy store camera photo provided by the owner. Archive, photocopy of receipt, dated September 10th, 1985. Items: wire cutters, $12.99. Key blank set, $8.50. Handwritten note on margin: for project, urgent. The paper feels brittle, ink slightly faded. This discovery shifted suspicions squarely onto John and Alex. Arrest followed on September 18th. Under interrogation, Alex cracked first, admitting to helping a friend but denying knowledge of the cash. John said it was just moving some crates, he claimed in a taped session, his voice laced with regret. Hayes leaned in, the fluorescent buzz overhead amplifying the tension. "Crates don't hold $2.9 million, son." Yet, the money remained elusive. Searches of their homes yielded nothing. No bundles in basements, no suspicious deposits. Sarah Miller, tearful in her statement, revealed John's late-night phone calls in the weeks prior, but no leads panned out. The official narrative solidified: a botched inside heist by two desperate men, motivated by personal gain. Prosecutors built a case on circumstantial evidence: the receipt, timelines, and motive. By October, charges of grand theft were filed, with trials set for the new year. But cracks appeared in the story. Community members rallied for John, citing his spotless record and Sarah's illness. "He's no criminal," a coworker testified in a preliminary hearing. And then, an anonymous tip line call on October 5th hinted at more players. Check the manager's office. "There's a ledger. Hayes dismissed it initially as a prank, but Grant pushed to follow up, her intuition sparking. The real bombshell dropped during an evidence review on November 12, 1985. Sifting through Alex's impounded truck, Grant found a hidden compartment under the seat, a small envelope containing a Polaroid photo. The image depicted John and Alex standing beside a third man, unidentified, in what looked like a dimly lit warehouse. On the back, scrawled in pencil, split 3 ways. Don't forget, the photo's edges were worn as if handled repeatedly, and the timestamp imprint read August 1985. Transcript. Excerpt from Evidence Log Audio, November 12, 1985. Detective Grant. Hayes, look at this. There's someone else in the frame. Detective Hayes pauses, then sighs. Damn, this changes everything. Background noise, rustling papers, a distant siren. Who was this mystery figure, and why had John and Alex kept silent? The photo suggested a larger conspiracy, perhaps involving airport insiders or external fences. As winter set in, the case teetered on the edge of revelation, with the stolen millions still whispers in the wind. If you want to know what this hidden photo uncovered and how it shattered the official story, subscribe and drop a comment with the city you're watching from. The Riverside Airport heist of 1985 had faded into local legend, a cautionary tale whispered over beers of the Rusty Anchor, a dive bar on Riverfront Avenue where the jukebox still played Springsteen hits from the era. The $2.9 million theft, executed with chilling precision, left scars on the town, a community of factory workers and small business owners who prided themselves on hard-earned trust. John Miller and Alex Thompson, the convicted culprits, served their time and slipped into obscurity, but the missing money and unanswered questions gnawed at Riverside like a splinter under the skin. By 2005, the case was a cold file buried in a basement archive until a single photograph reignited the hunt. On March 15, 2005, at 2:14 p.m., Detective Lisa Grant stood in the fluorescent-lit basement of the Riverside Police Department, her breath catching the musty scent of old paper and dust. Now 48, Grant had traded her rookie enthusiasm for a methodical resolve. Her dark hair streaked with gray, but her eyes still sharp with purpose. Beside her was Detective Marcus Reed, 32, a wiry tech specialist whose fingers danced over a laptop keyboard, pulling data from systems unimaginable in 1985. The cold case unit was a cluttered maze of cardboard boxes and faded labels, each one a story begging to be reopened. Grant pulled a brittle evidence envelope from a box marked case hashtag 85-392. Inside was the Polaroid that had haunted her for 2 decades. John Miller, Alex Thompson, and a third, unidentified man in a dimly lit warehouse, their faces grainy under the flash. The photo's edges were curled, its colors dulled by time, but the scrawled note on the back, split 3 ways. Don't forget, still carried a jolt of intrigue. This guy, Grant said, tapping the mystery man's face. He's the key we missed. Archive, digital scan of Polaroid photo, enhanced March 2005. The third man stands slightly apart, his scar above the left eyebrow now visible under digital sharpening. A faint timestamp reads August 1985, the paper creased from years of handling. Reed uploaded the image into a facial recognition program, a 2005 marvel pulling from digitized mugshots and public records. The software hummed, the screen casting a blue glow across Reed's focused expression. Hours later, a match. Victor Lang, 58, a former airport contractor with a rap sheet of petty fraud and tax evasion. Lang lived in a sagging trailer park on the edge of Riverside, where the air smelled of pine and gasoline from a nearby truck stop. Grant and Reed drove out that evening, their unmarked sedan crunching over gravel as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in bruised purples. Lang answered the door in a stained flannel shirt, his eyes darting like a cornered animal. The trailer's interior reeked of cigarette smoke and stale coffee, with a flickering TV playing reruns of a game show. "What's this about?" Lang rasped, sinking into a worn couch. Grant's voice was calm but firm. "September 14th, 1985. Riverside Airport. Ring a bell. Lang's fingers tightened around a beer can, the aluminum crinkling. After a long pause, he spoke. I was the fence. John came to me in July, said he needed cash for his wife's hospital bills. Alex was the driver, the muscle. But Lang's confession went deeper, unraveling the heist's true scope. It wasn't just us, he said, lighting a cigarette, the flame briefly illuminating his weathered face. Edward Klein, the airport manager, planned it. He was skimming from shipments for years, cooking books to hide his own debts. The heist was his way to cover tracks and cash out. Klein, Lang claimed, provided the vault codes and took a $500,000 cut, stashing the rest in offshore accounts or physical hides. The revelation hit like a thunderclap, reframing the entire case. Transcript. Excerpt from Victor Lang's recorded interview. March 16, 2005. Lang. Klein called it his retirement plan. Gave us the override key. Said we'd all walk away rich. Grant. And the money? 2.9 million doesn't just vanish. Lang. Laughs, a dry, bitter sound. Klein didn't share. Check his old office safe. Might find something. Background. A dog barks faintly outside. The recorder clicks off. Grant and Reed pivoted to Klein, now 67 and living in a gated Florida condo, his wealth a quiet rumor in Riverside. Subpoenaing his financial record from the 1980s, now digitized by regional banks, revealed suspicious transfers. A $500,000 deposit labeled consulting fees hit Klein's account days after the heist, wired to a Cayman Islands bank. Reed's digital forensics uncovered more. Emails from 2002, stored on an old server, where Klein alluded to past investments yielding unexpected returns. The pieces were falling into place, but the money's physical whereabouts remained elusive. The investigation stirred Riverside's collective memory. Local news ran segments titled Heist Haunts Return, the anchor's voice crackling through radios in diners and gas stations. Sarah Miller, John's widow, watched from her Elm Street bungalow, her hands trembling as she poured tea, the kettle's whistle a sharp reminder of her fragile health. Sarah had always believed John's story, that he acted out of desperation, not greed. Her daughter, Emily, 35, became the emotional linchpin, addressing a town hall meeting packed with familiar faces. My father wasn't a mastermind, Emily said, her voice steady despite the lump in her throat. He was a man drowning in debt, trying to save my mother. The room, heavy with the scent of polished wood and coffee, erupted in supportive murmurs. Archive. Photograph from Riverside Gazette, April 2005. Emily Miller stands at a podium, her eyes red but resolute, a crowd of locals behind her. Caption. Daughter seeks truth in decades-old heist. A break came unexpectedly at a local estate sale on April 10, 2005. Reed, browsing for vintage tech, bought a box of dusty floppy disks for $20 from the estate of Klein's former assistant, Margaret Cole, who died the previous year. Back at the station, Reed fired up a clunky 1990s computer. The drives mechanical were filling the room. One disk held an encrypted ledger, cracked with modern algorithms. It detailed the heist split. John received $400,000, most spent on medical bills. Alex, $300,000, lost to bad investments. Lang, $200,000, and Klein a staggering $1 million. Crucially, the ledger listed GPS coordinates for a rural plot 10 miles outside Riverside, where $1.5 million was buried in waterproof cases. Imagine standing in that field at dawn, the chill of early spring seeping through your coat, as the ground yields secrets buried for 20 years. The weight of truth is heavier than the cash itself. The dig commenced on April 22, 2005 at 5:47 a.m. Floodlights pierced the morning fog, casting long shadows over the frost-tipped grass. Officers and forensic teams worked methodically, their shovels striking earth with rhythmic thuds. The air smelled of wet soil and anticipation. At a depth of 3 feet, they hit metal, rusted cases containing $1.4 million in faded bills, some frayed by time, but unmistakably real. Grant knelt beside the find, her gloved hands brushing dirt from the bundles, the moment heavy with closure. Transcript, field audio log, April 22nd, 2005. Read, got something. Metal cases sealed tight. Grant, careful, Marcus. This is history coming up for air. Background, shovel scrape, a crow caws in the distance. Klein's arrest followed swiftly. Extradited from Florida, he faced charges of conspiracy, embezzlement, and fraud. In court, his polished demeanor cracked. I was in over my head, he confessed, his voice barely audible over the courtroom's hum. Debts from a failed real estate deal. I thought I could fix it. Not a cartoon villain, but a man undone by his own rationalizations. The jury, swayed by the ledger and recovered cash, convicted him in July 2005. He received a 10-year sentence, a hollow victory for a town still healing. For John and Alex, posthumous reviews brought partial redemption. John's record was cleared of primary responsibility, acknowledging Klein's coercion. Alex, now a handyman in a nearby town, expressed relief in a letter to Emily. I was young, stupid. I'm sorry for the pain. Emily used a portion of the recovered funds to establish the Sarah Miller Foundation, aiding families with medical debt. At the ribbon-cutting ceremony on September 14, 2005, exactly 20 years after the heist, she stood under a gray sky, the wind carrying the scent of autumn leaves. "This is my parents' legacy now," she said, her voice breaking but resolute. The moral heart of the story lay in Riverside's transformation. The airport, stung by scandal, implemented biometric security and rigorous audits, ensuring no repeat of 1985's vulnerabilities. Community forums flourished, with locals sharing stories at the town library, the air thick with the smell of old books and fresh ink. Sarah passed in 2007, her final words to Emily. "Your father loved us, even when he lost himself." Grant and Reed, now partners in more than just cases, celebrated over beers at the Rusty Anchor, the jukebox playing a familiar tune. "We gave them truth," Grant said, her voice soft with empathy. Yet, open questions lingered. Were there other accomplices? Did Klein act alone in his cover-up, or did higher powers turn a blind eye? Riverside learned that justice, though delayed, could mend fractured trusts, but the cost, measured in broken families and faded dreams, remained incalculable. All characters and events in this story are fictional or altered for dramatic purposes. No real events were used as direct inspiration. Any similarities are coincidental.